save it as different versions now. So if you
Right.
wanted 4 different versions and figure out which one you want to use or for different venues. And have you experimented with the feedback? Um,
A little bit. Is that something? That's a question. Good question. It's a point you bring up. Is that something I've got to be at a high volume environment to work with that, or is that also an algorithmic? In other words, I don't have to have my synapse or whatever I'm using up really loud. I don't have to be at feedback level to use that.
well, if it's a little bit boomy for you, if you've made a recording that's a little boomy, you can always bring a little bit of that in, and that'll
Right.
kind of like act like EQ. But one of the thrilling things to us, for me, the only problem in amplifying acoustic guitar is feedback. That's the only problem.
Right.
If it wasn't for feedback, everybody'd be doing it beautifully,
Right.
right? I mean, feedback is the war. So one of the things I'm so thrilled about with the voice print is that, I mentioned earlier we were using measurement as opposed to aesthetics.
Right.
And so because of that, in the capture process, the algorithm identifies where that guitar is going to feed back.
Right.
Every guitar is going to be a little different. And
Yeah.
so what happens is we've identified some major points that are always problematic. And so we've created a filter that hears them, measures them, identifies them, and creates notches at all those points. And then that's all ganged together on that one slider. So it's just either 0 to scorched earth, you know, if you have to. But we've found the reason that I'm so thrilled about it is, number one, it makes it easy, and
Right.
number two, it's accurate. Number three, it works without the draconian measures that are normally needed to eradicate feedback when you're, say, on an arena stage
Right.
or in one of those environments. It takes a lot less, and so it brings a really good front of house engineer to the average musician who's playing in Lower Broad in Nashville, or that war zone down there.
Right. Well,
So
one of the questions I had was in your field testing, and of course, none of us have been able to get out and do much of that, until, it's starting to open up now. I'm going back out on the road to do some gigs, and nothing huge, but it's in front of people for, money. So
sure.
it's kind of the idea. Does it, do you find it translates well to different systems? In other words, if I play on somebody's big front of house rig with some wedges one night, and then the next night I've got the synapse behind me. I mean, should I have to, in theory, should there be many changes that need to be made?
I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Okay. Yeah.
We have all kinds of systems at our place, and we've simulated it from the Synapse and studio monitors, a big Meyer PA system, um, and we always go for flat. It's like
Well, that's
whatever.
the goal. That's the goal, right?
Yeah,
If you,
I mean,
yeah.
if a nightclub has done a decent job on their PA,
Well,
if theoretically any arena system will have a high level of pro that has run the system out, and the system's dialed, and performing arts centers are always usually pretty good. And
right.
you're gonna, a dive bar. What are you gonna do? You just pray and hope, right?
Right.
And uh, but generally, our whole career, we've voiced things for flat, and that feels the most flexible to me. You can manipulate it. Like, I think, for instance, like our EQ, I always look at EQ as remedial and for the system and the venue. We always try to voice our systems where you can plug them into a decent set of studio monitors, and you don't have to touch them.
Right.
But when you go out and play live, you know, that's where you're going to encounter every range of beautiful to nightmare. And so our EQs are really designed for um, remediating those kind of situations.
Well, yeah, I always think of an equalizer as it's just a problem solver, you know, and if there's no problem, hands off, you know,
Yep.
leave it alone.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes from Risky Business is when Tom Cruise's father walks him in there and opens that armoire, and there's a like a dual 15 band graphic or something, and all, and he says, Joel, do you hear anything? And he says, no. He says, a preponderance of bass, perhaps. And he's basically telling him hands off the graphic while we're out of town. And the first thing he does is go in there and just everything below 500, just all the way up, you know. But anyway,
Yeah.
well, I'm fascinated with the new system. And I've got a system set up in the back of my shop where when I'm not busy doing other things, I've been checking it with different guitars, and I'm getting ready to go back out, and I've got a couple of instruments that I'm going to start using that I haven't used on tour before. So I'm excited, and I'll probably report back with my results with the
Well,
voice print.
that's great. Yesterday, we just got a little iPhone video from Bob Minner, who is Tim McGraw's guitar player. And he was in rehearsal, and he was showing the point of the video was how loud he could play his guitar while he was standing in front of the side fills.
That's the
So
test.
yeah, so that's like the probably the first arena outing for this thing, which was made me pretty happy.
Were they at sound check or somewhere doing the big?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
they were at sound check.
somewhere big. Yeah, they have a bigger practice room than the rest of us. So,
Yeah.
well, tell me kind of what's next on the horizon. It seems like to me that in the past 3 or 4 years, you guys have been going at warp speed and introducing new stuff. The synapse, the align pedals, the voice print, the venue, all that stuff. I mean, it seems like to me you've got a lot of your cupboard is full of pretty advanced stuff at the moment.
Yeah, it's an exciting time for us. And about 5 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, I was feeling a little bit like a blacksmith at the turn of the century, looking at the automobile and realizing we had the analog game down, but that we were really quick. You know, everything was going digital, and that there was so much you could do with digital that we hadn't done. That I thought, okay, time to dive head first. So it felt a little bit like jumping out of a 30 floor window and building an airplane on the way down. But we got there, and we have so many ideas now. It's like before I was like kind of feeling like I'd run out of gas too. And
Right.
we had run out of gas a little bit, but we're so energized with the possibilities. So we are continuing our digital evolution. And one of the things that we realized was that if you think about any digital piece of equipment, you're listening to it through speakers and you're addressing it through a microphone. Two-thirds of that is analog.
Yeah.
So the way you address it and the way you get it out has a profound influence on how everything sounds.
Right.
So we spent a lot of time researching that interface, and since we are so good at analog, we quickly learned that digital isn't an awful thing like people can think of. You know, you've heard bad digital,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, some of it's crappy processors, but a lot of it's just those op amps that they go in and out of, and they don't pay any attention to that. So we've used our analog expertise to really elevate the sound quality, and like the voice print is running at 96K, for instance. That's
Right.
studio standard, and so the pristine audio quality is also a foundation of our company. And so we have a number of products on the drawing board that I don't really feel we should talk about here,
No.
but um, I have also started building guitars again. And one of the things that we've realized is that we have a kind of a combination. Well, back when I was building guitars, I became a member of a thing called the Catgut Acoustical Society that scientifically studied why things sound the way they do.
Right.
And so I did a lot of research on mode studies and guitar vibration and things when I was building. And that gave me an advantage in designing pickups. And so then now if you combine the expertise that we've gained with designing pickups with the knowledge of guitars, we kind of got the idea of like, okay, what if somebody actually had those two skill sets and designed the guitar for amplification and used all the tricks that just basically used basic guitar physics and amplification physics and the experience. So we've been working on some guitars along those lines. I don't quite know where it's going to go yet,
Right.
but some of the prototypes that we have are kind of exciting. So
Well, it
that's
sounds
what
like every door you go through these days, with respect to design and the digital world and all that. Every door you go through, there's another door that opens. You know, it's like,
yeah.
well, if we can do this, well, maybe we can do that. And it's funny you talk about. I've actually got an L.R. Baggs guitar here in my shop.
You do?
Well, John Oates gave it to me to sell. It looks like a Telly.
Oh yeah, that.
What
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that? I've got
Oh,
that, and I keep taking it off the wall because it actually really sounds good. It's got some sliders here, you know,
yeah,
and so what is that guitar? I
yeah.
can't explain it to people, but
Oh, that's the thing that put our company on the map. And I actually designed that guitar. That was the first guitar I designed for amplification, and I
uh
built that thing in 1986.
so it's that old.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Um,
John and I are friends, and we've worked on some records together and stuff. And one day when he thought he was selling his place in Aspen, he brought some things over that he thought he needed to clean house a little bit. And some of them I've sold, and some of them it's like that one. I'll put it out for a little bit, and I go, that's just cool enough that it makes me want to hang on to it, you know.
well, that was step one in my journey of how to amplify an acoustic. I mean, the whole problem is feedback, as I said.
Yeah,
So, uh, and sounding good. So that was an attempt way back when to sound good without feedback. And I ended up licensing that guitar to Godin,
that's what
and
it looks like. That's what it reminds me
it,
of with the
it is a
yeah.
Godin. And so they built that. I built 3 prototypes, and then they built the rest. And um,
Well,
so
this has your logo at the top. So
yeah, they built it with our logo for
ah,
a couple of years,
yeah.
and then it just became Godin.
Well, I'm just going to have to pay him for it and keep it because I think it's cool.
Oh, thanks.
One
So
day
that
somebody
that
said,
launched
"What?"
that launched me into that thought process.
Uh huh.
That has a patented thing inside. It's like a almost like a kalimba that these little rods underneath the bridge, and they're tuned to the major resonant frequencies of the dreadnought. So they absorb energy from the pickup a little bit like a top would, which is like a resonance is a weakness. It's not a strength. So a resonance is just a place for the energy at that frequency to go away, and
Right.
it goes away into the top of a regular acoustic guitar. But in this particular case, the energy goes away into those harps, and the pickup doesn't know the difference. And
Right.
that's why it sounds a little more convincingly acoustic than, say, if it was on a solid plank of wood or even a regular brass top.
It really does sound good, and so it's there's that sort of push pull between, yeah, you can play that and you're not going to have to worry about feedback, but it doesn't look and feel like my Roy Smeck or whatever. It's a
Yeah.
whole different thing. So to me, it's a fascinating thing that we've gotten to watch the evolution of all this. It's a neat time to be probably in the design business because there's so many tools that weren't there 20 years ago.
So amazing.
Yeah,
Our inbox is like dizzying. We have these product planning meetings every few months, and we just keep adding to the list, and it's like, dang, how are we going to how we already have three engineers on our staff from Cal Poly, and it's like, man, do we need another one? And
well, you're
we employ three PhDs for 3 years on the voice print.
well.
Uh,
It's a very innovative product, and what's nice about digital stuff is if you want to do a firmware update to change things, I guess you can do that as well.
yes.
The phone app works well with it. I mean, I haven't had there are no glitches except in my just getting, situated some of you just need a quiet place to work sometimes, and sometimes I don't have that.
Yeah. But if you mess around with mic positioning and things like that, you know, there's there there's a learning curve. I mean,
Yeah,
you're going to get something pretty decent right out of the gate if you
right,
follow our instructions. That's going to more than likely be considerably better than what you started with.
right.
But there's another level that you can get to with just some patience and some time.
Yeah,
You'll be rewarded.
yeah. Well, I'm fascinated with all of it, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and I appreciate you taking the time. And if I can get back out on the road to California, I've threatened for years to stop by and see you
Oh, that'd
guys,
be
but
awesome.
I usually drive right by, and I gotta get by and see you. So thank you for taking the time, and I'm grateful.
My pleasure,
All
David. I
right,
really appreciate it too. Thank you.
you bet.